enjoy the webinar, which includes 2 times TEDx speaker from Monash University, Maria Redesh, also CEO of Melbourne Metropolitan College and entrepreneur, Mr. Hemi Hussein, and co-founder of Kangaroo Global, Mr. TJ Allen. Now, so we might just kick off because we want to try and keep this to a nice round hour. Thank you so much for joining us here to discuss the important subject of employment opportunities. Obviously, we're in unprecedented times with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic, and its effect across numerous industries has been widely felt. But perhaps one of the few considered implications within the general media has been on the impact to one of our most important sectors, not only in terms of 4 million Australians who are currently in the education system, but also with respect to our 3rd largest export. Statistics from the Australian government represent that international education alone is worth $32 billion to the Australian economy. Some other recent reports suggest that this sector has been hit significantly, and that by October we may even see significant job losses from this sector as well. But one of perhaps the silent victims of this, the COVID-19 situation, has been the plight of particularly domestic and international students. Casual workers, part-time workers were some of the first hit by the effects of unemployment, which is said to will reach around 10% by October. So we've decided as a collection of representatives from education, from industry, associate education, your agents, as well as business owners, and of course a TEDx speaker, 2-time TEDx speaker, Maria, who speaks about transformation and human-centered design in curriculum. We've decided to come together and host this webinar to actually talk about the important subject of employment solutions for both domestic and international students. My name's Gareth Benson. I am the Director of Green&Gold Education. I'm a lecturer at RMIT University, as well as work as a practicing lawyer. And I really stand at the bridge between education and business. And my focus is really about how we can build stronger bridges between both these areas of our life and industry. In fact, focusing directly on how we can better assist students in the changes, not only this year with the COVID-19 situation, but also in the next 10 years. Where we will see so much change to our workforce that really, at the end of the day, education needs to catch up. And so I might just start our presentation there and introduce our 4 speakers, who are, of course, welcome CEO of Melbourne Metropolitan College, Mr. Hemi Hussein, also an entrepreneur who runs digital media and entrepreneurship programs, both for industry and in education. I mentioned Maria before, 2-time TEDx speaker. Welcome to you. And of course, Managing Director and co-founder of Kangaroo Global, Mr. TJ Allen, who will give a perspective, an international perspective to this discussion, given the 10 different countries that his business represents and their perspectives with respect to our 3rd largest export, international education. So without any more introduction, I'll just get into our presentation today. Let me just make sure my screen's working. Is it working there? I'm not sure if it is. Okay, there we go. So basically, we'll be beginning this discussion by going for a trip back to the future. Our entire education system is based on Socratic thinking, which basically means an encouragement to ask the question why. And that's why today we would like to start with why. The why of education and why it's so important for us to actually get behind supporting the people who are most vulnerable in our education system, which is our students. We know that Socrates, apart from laying the foundations for education, He also used the world as his classroom. Here's a picture of Athens, and Socrates was famous for teaching students all over Athens because he would use the world around him as his classroom. Fast forward almost, 3,000 years, here in Australia, we have the world coming to use Australia as a classroom. And therefore, we need to make sure that these students and their experience is maintained despite the fact that we are seeing the disruption to our ordinary and everyday lives. Many international students have been relegated out of the classroom and back home with only an unreliable internet connection. We need to make sure that their world is not disrupted because it risks the reputation of our education system. Because basically, at the end of the day, in the word of Socrates, education is the kindling of a flame, not just the filling of a vessel. And that's why we genuinely want to see our students looked out for in this time and ongoing through the changes that we will see in education in the next 10 years. We know that what's at stake is actually our reputation globally. We know that Melbourne is the third most popular ranked student city in the world, these statistics provided by Study Melbourne. But therefore, we should need to ensure that students are looked out for in order to ensure that the reputation of our education system remains a popular destination for international students. And to kick that off, I'd like to warmly welcome the 2 times TEDx speaker from Monash University, Maria, who is actually going to speak to us about the importance of student welfare at this time. She speaks passionately about this subject, and I'd like to welcome her and ask her to answer the question, why, Maria, is this so important?
Hi, everyone. It's an incredible pleasure to be here and to take part in this conversation. And for those who don't know me yet, I would like to give a quick insight into why am I the one to talk about well-being. So when it comes to my experience, I hold nearly a dozen of university degrees and qualifications. I had pleasure of studying on 3 continents, Europe, America, and here in Australia. I attended 5 universities. In particular, in Melbourne, I got 2 degrees from Melbourne University, and I also undertook a lot of subjects at Monash and Deakin. And I also have years of teaching experience. I worked as a university lecturer and RTO trainer as well. So partially, what I'm talking about today is based on my own life experience. But also, over the last few years, many international students have been reaching out to me. And I can see that practically questions and problems are all the same in every conversation. And the main problem is that a lot of international students basically roller coast between anxiety and depression, which is not surprising because nowadays these 2 health issues have become main health issues worldwide. And on top of that, we can compare international students to flowers. So imagine a flower growing in its environment, and it got used to a certain amount of sunshine and a certain amount of wind and nutrition and water. And suddenly that flower gets ripped out of its environment and just shoved into a new place. Well, it doesn't matter if that new spot is much better. It doesn't matter if the breeze is lighter and the sun is brighter and there is more water and more nutrition. It really doesn't matter how better that new environment is. It takes a lot of time and effort to adapt to those new conditions. And this is in particular why it's so difficult for international students to move countries and to study, because they need to adapt and adapt quickly to new environment. So I strongly believe that this could be resolved if universities start providing a subject. We can call it how to student or how to human. It doesn't really matter what we call it, but it should be about providing the fundamentals of human psychology and physiology to their students. It should be a core subject, not something extracurricular, but actually a core subject that would teach the basics to students on what are the basics behind human behavior, happiness, and success in particular. And yes, one might say, oh, why? There is so much information already available on personal development. But it's actually one of the problems that, yes, there's so much information already available that it's overwhelming. It's just way too much. And the problem is not only that it's a lot of information, the problem is also that it's presented to us as scattered pieces of a puzzle. So when we, for example, read a book or watch a TEDx talk or come across an episode from a podcast or hear a quote, separately, each one of those pieces makes sense. But it takes a lot of time. And I know that for a lot of people who embark on the personal development journey, it takes years, sometimes over a decade, to finally pull those pieces of a puzzle together into a full picture. And another metaphor that I think is very suitable, it can be compared to personal development these days, could be compared to scattered bricks, and a person trying to build a high-rise building out of those scattered bricks without laying the foundation first. So this is what I believe universities should do: lay that foundation, explain the basics, the principles of human psychology and physiology to their students. Because once they have that foundation, then they can go to outside resources. They can dive into topics that are more important to them specifically. But before they do that, in order to make use of that information and to entail transformation, they do need to have the foundation built first. So it's impossible to give all the information, and it's absolutely unnecessary. But what is necessary is to create the structure, is to give clarity to students on, like I said, how to student or how to human. But I'm advocating for bringing it as a core discipline and training. Basically, I would love to see it in kindergartens, in schools, and at the workplace. But I think universities is the place to start with this initiative, a place to bring it as a core training and as a core subject. Because
That's fantastic, Maria. And I know that you've had your personal journey was one of an international student. You work very closely also with the international students Girls in Australia. I know that they have done a lot of, they're doing a lot of advocacy work. Can you give a bit of an update as to what they're doing behind the scenes?
Yes,
And public?
it's a great pleasure. Yeah, it's a great pleasure to collaborate with the Council of International Students of Australia. They're doing amazing work on in very different directions, and in particular, they did play an important role with international students finally getting financial support from the government and from universities. So incredible team. They're very passionate, and they're doing everything possible to help students. And it's been a really great journey for me with them to prepare videos for them on a weekly basis on elements of personal development.
Fantastic. So that's where people can, any students on the call today can also turn and basically look them up on Facebook because I know Maria's publishing a lot of content, which is really looking out for the personal well-being of students at this time. Someone that does that in their day-to-day job is a participant on the call. His name is Mr. Anton Burke. He basically is based in Sydney and has worked for a long time with students. Antoine, what is your experience in Sydney and what are you seeing on the ground with respect to student welfare?
Thanks, Gareth. I'd agree with Maria on her point about the foundations for success with the overseas study experience and, potentially for migration to Australia, if that's the interest for some students, that they need a level of emotional intelligence. They need their wellness taken care of, and they need, some core coping skills, which potentially psychologists or social workers or some advocate could provide to ensure that their health and well-being is strong, number one. So that is absolute priority, that they're taken care of, and that the industry plays a part in taking care of them. So I think that should be an integral part of every curriculum in the RTO sector or in the university sector or wherever. My experience is, though, that there's no silver bullet to success for international students. It'll be a combination of many ingredients. My focus area in recent years has been employability, and a simple thing like how to sell yourself in writing via a traditional cover letter, resume, and then progressing to verbal skills to sell yourself in an interview situation, or even personal branding through your LinkedIn profile, which might be very rudimentary in the beginning, but it's still something that employers are increasingly turning to for their graduate employment. So if students haven't taken steps to ensure that they can sell themselves, and I think it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or a graphic designer, you still need to have this knowledge of professional social networking and personal branding. Very typical now of employers just to Google a name, even if it's an international student, just to see what crops up. So I think students need to be cognizant that there's a new era of recruitment and a new era of employability skills which need to be refined. And as soon as students can get exposure to the workplace through, be it internships or some kind of networking opportunities, that's another factor that I'd strongly promote and encourage.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, Antoine, and I'd agree strongly with respect to employability. I mean, well, health and well-being is on one side. At the end of the day, the harsh reality is that many of these international students have lost their jobs, and increasingly, we need to, and universities, vocational institutions, need to be fostering opportunities for students to return to work. There's been a huge focus out in the general public about people returning to work, but we need to also focus on that with respect to these students and employability options. And that's one of the things that towards the end of the call, we'll also be introducing an apprenticeship program where we've been discussing, actually as even today with the Victorian Chamber of Commerce, about ways that we can actually engage with students and get them working in work that is also relevant to their jobs. So now we're going to actually just move now to discuss the importance of this, not only on a local level, but also on an international level. There's been some recent discussion about how people have been out of work, and someone that has an international perspective of this is Managing Director of Kangaroo Global, which is an agency that actually represents 10 different countries. TJ, welcome to the call. And maybe just to kick off, what does Australia risk with respect to international students at this time in the eyes of the world and Australian international education?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gareth, for having me as part of this amazing conversation. Hi, guys. My name is TJ. I am, I'm loving the fact that we are all collaborating together to really address these alarming issues when it comes to international education. I represent 10 countries and we've got 15 offices globally located, and we not only recruit students to Australia, but we recruit students all over the world, to the US, UK, Europe, Canada, Malta, you name it. And we've been growing in 10 years in the making. Primarily, we're based in Australia. Our head office is in Sydney. And me being an international student myself, I came to Australia and backdated in 2010. I came across wanting to study my bachelor's degree in UNSW, and I finished off my civil engineering degree. And from the day one, I knew it right then and there that being an international student, the hardships that you face, it wasn't addressed at all the way it is now. And yet, till this day, I still believe that we're having to see the hardship of international students coming to Australia, and agencies really look at the monetary factor first and foremost over the welfare. So that really causes a problem and causes a dent in the reputation of agents. That's why I stepped in the game of, although I did engineering, but I wanted to really engineer my way into really fixing the issues of when it comes to education and looking out for students, because I've been through those problems. I've been going, and I can address these problems straight head on with the assistance of people who is coming. Right at this point in time, fast forward 10 years down the track, we are at a point where every single sector that you can think of have been affected because of COVID-19, and it's not only disrupted business expansion, it's also disrupted the study plan, the workflow, you name it. It's just we're living tough times, but we're all collaboratively, we can come across strong. We can come across in a manner where we can solve problems together. And right at this point in time, international students have been reaching out to us. They don't have money to either pay their tuition fees, they're losing jobs. We're having a global tectonic movement, as per quote, where people. I've had this. At the beginning of this year, we successfully got investors to open office in China. 20 offshore files were in the pipeline, ready to be recruited for universities in Melbourne, in La Trobe, in Swinburne, you name it. We were literally on the grind trying to get these students and add them to the overall value of Australian education. But now it came to a point where these because of the travel ban, because of all these issues happening all at once. Now we're coming to a point where how do you really convince parents? Because at the end of the day, let's get this point straight across. Investors are our parents. Students don't have that monetary. Not every student is eligible for a scholarship. They're not in terms when you think of from a merit-based perspective. So when you're really looking at parents looking at their child waking up in their pajamas and sitting in front of a computer and trying to do a class, really thinking from a conservative point of view, that doesn't really work. Having to convince parents that they will be getting an Australian form of education, but behind a computer screen, doesn't really work as effectively as you think it should. So this really comes a point where online education is the next. It is the future. It is the direction we're headed. But how do we really emphasize on how this is going to be the new norm? That's something that we really need to address, and we need to address this now. We have the Elon classroom. We've got that set up in Harvard University and SPJ and School of Global Project Management. They have a unique setup in place, and I know for a fact that they have classrooms where you can be located anywhere in the world doing executive MBAs, doing all these amazing courses where lecturers can be delivering the classes in different time zones. That's the future. I mean, that's what we need to sell. That's what we need to tell universities, that we need to evolve. We need to evolve with changing times. Pandemics are happening every 100 years to really give us that reality check that this is how we evolve. We have to evolve. We're forced to evolve, and this is the time we need to get uncomfortable to become the best version of ourselves. When it comes to the risk factor, Gareth, coming to your question, we are at great risk. We're pretty much, as you can understand, offshore files. It's literally coming to a point where I'm losing numbers quite considerably. And now it's come to a point where I'm having to focus on really my existing clientele, trying to work on referrals, work on really all these factors where I need to survive as an agent, because in order to survive as a credible agent, you need to look at the longer term goals. I'm not going to name any other agents. At the end of the day, on ethical grounds, agents also tend to be influential in a negative manner, where they tend to influence students to hop around universities and providers, which is again unethical on every manner and ground possible. This is something that we really need to address on a longer term. Obviously, on a short-term goal, business happens, you make money, but really you're making money at the expense of hampering and jeopardizing someone's future. Can you really sleep at night with that thought? That's a question you need to ask yourself.
You raised some great points there, TJ, and thank you so much for those perspectives. One of the things that I just like to pick up on what you were speaking about is, look, in your experience, you've seen many international students. They're taking their education to their bedroom. They're working on substandard internet connections, and I have heard that universities are not even subsidising fees. You know, and we really need to think that the quality of the education that these people are experiencing, on top of their lack of, you know, employment options, their experience is being affected dramatically. Someone else that can speak very strongly about this, and he's on the call now, Robert Parsonson. He is the president of the International Student Education Agents Association. He's been at the coalface in a lot of advocacy. Welcome, Robert.
Yeah. Hi, Gareth. Hi, everyone. We're a group of 170 plus education agents from all parts of the world, and of course, this is a time when all of us have been hit, and there is some practices of some educations that have gone on that are questionable. I have to take up with TJ. That is correct, but the majority of agents, and we're talking in sort of 90% of ones that do take care of their students, and in frontline positions now to assist students. And most of their work now is not recruiting, it's actually flipped to student welfare, especially the onshore agents in Australia. And what we're advocating and have advocated strongly is that students are part of our community. So it's not a question of, you know, Australians first, you know, we must take care of our Australians first and students can go home. The fact is students just cannot go home at the moment through travel restrictions and other areas. They're here, they're in our community, we have to take care of them. So we have not been stopping advocating at local government levels, state government levels and federal government levels that this is important. The states have started to pick up, as we saw in Victoria, South Australia, other states, pretty much all states except New South Wales have taken up at least some care of the students, but it's not enough. So it continues. This is still part of that phase where we have to take care of the here and now, and that's our students who are in trouble. But we do look to the future as well, and would pick up on TJ's thing on online and Gareth's. And online is no substitute for lived experience in Australia. So we know that this is only a short-term solution, but we do have to make the best of it we can. So we look now to the future and trying to open up Australia again, and we're taking up that area of how to get international students in first into Australia when things, when it becomes possible to bring students back in. So yeah, the work that we're doing, welfare, and then of course the business continuity of our industry.
Excellent, Robert. Well, thank you very much for all the hard work that you're doing on the ground. And I understand that you're jumping onto a call, and Craig Foster, formerly of SBS, is doing a lot of work as well, and posting quite a lot on LinkedIn. We'd now like to resume the focus back to students, and someone that knows very well about the journey of being, coming to Australia and forging a career here, now working as an educator, is Mr. Hemi Hussein. Hemi Hussein is the CEO of Melbourne Metropolitan College, and also an international speaker and international best-selling author on the pathways to digital entrepreneurship with his best-selling book, Fire Your Boss. Hemi's going to now speak about the opportunities for student growth that exist in digital entrepreneurship now that we see education going online. Hemi, what is the future for students, and how can they embrace the digital revolution in equipping themselves for work?
Thank you, Gareth. Gareth, can I share my screen? So I've
Absolutely,
got a PowerPoint deck I just want to show.
All over. You're right to roll.
So can you see my screen?
Yes, just full screen. Yep, way to go.
Awesome. So the digital entrepreneurship, right? That's my focus in last 5 years. I've been constantly telling people that the entrepreneurship word doesn't exist anymore. We need to move towards to digital. And some people told me a couple of years ago, I'm crazy. They think that it's not going to happen in next 10 years. But look at this, COVID-19 is a learning for us. We all are in digital right now. And what TJ mentioned before, that international students are at home, lying on bed, and they are doing their study. So I'm going to talk about how this is an opportunity and what international student can do right now in order to become a digital entrepreneur, or even utilize the online platform to actually get some work. Because if we continue what we are doing right now, I think in Australia is going to lose massive international student in down the track, and it's going to impact our economy heavily. So let's see what so according to the Forbes, the 8 job skill, they are saying that after this coronavirus, if you want to succeed, those are the 8 skills you need. The first one, they're talking about the adaptability and flexibility, tech savviness, creativity and innovation, data literacy, critical thinking, digital leadership, and emotional intelligence. And I'm really focusing in here more about the digital path, because that's what, like I was focusing in last few years. So I put it in 2 different, the path. One is more about the ongoing personal development side. Then another one is the technical skills. Under the technical skill, we can see that all this innovation, tech savviness, data literacy, and the digital. So just let's see what happened in the industry in last 10 years. So we can see that the world largest taxi companies, Uber, owns no vehicle. Airbnb, the largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate. The most popular media provider creates no content. The most valuable photo company sells no cameras, Instagram. The fastest growing television network lays no cables, Netflix. And the most valuable retailer has no inventory, Alibaba. In those companies, even it was not existed in the world 10 to 15 years ago. So we can see the revolution happen in the industry last 10 to 15 years. And I'm pretty much sure that after this COVID-19, there will be much more revolutions are coming in the world. So let's talk about what we can do in here. So as I said, that the world is moving towards to digital. We can see that more than 2.3 billion people are active in Facebook in every month. We have got more than 575 plus million people are in LinkedIn. We have got more than 1 billion active users are in Instagram. So the question is how much we are utilizing the power of digital and the social media for our job or for our business in future. And for our international student or even local domestic student, what they can do. So who doesn't know me a little bit about me? As Gareth mentioned, I'm Hemi. I came as an international student in Australia and studied in RMIT University, worked in corporate organization in Telstra, ANZ Bank for more than 15 years in the top role. Then I quit my job and become the digital entrepreneur. So now I'm the CEO of Melbourne Metropolitan College and founder of also Grow with Hemi. And we know that this industry, the Melbourne Metropolitan College, one of the biggest, impact right now in this COVID-19. We are pretty much nearly closing down. Our students are not coming to the class, and even they are not ready to come to the online class. We have been constantly calling them and asking them to attend the online class. Most of them are complaining they don't have even internet. They don't even have food at home. And then on the other hand, they have got tuition fees. They are very worried for that. So everything, when I consider this Melbourne Metropolitan College, we are actually the biggest impacted right now in terms of all the industry has got impacted in COVID-19. Couple of things about me. I was awarded the Best Business Award in 2018 in Small Business Victoria. In 2017, I was the Young Entrepreneur of the Year in Bangladesh. And Gareth mentioned that I have got an international best-selling book, Fire Your Boss, which is Transform Your Life from Employee to Digital Entrepreneur. So let's see what are the opportunities that are available right now in organizational perspective. I think that every industry will reshape after this COVID-19, regardless what industry we are working right now. I think that most of the industry will moving to online and they will be start utilizing the power of digital marketing. And I think that most of the organization like ourselves will be now more focusing on the reducing the operational cost. And that will impact our local job market and we can't even think about what's going to happen to international student or the domestic students who are working in the industry right now. I think that we can only resolve this problem if we focusing on the creating the more freelancer, or even the bring the apprenticeship who can help the bring leads to our organization in going forward. So the opportunities for the student, what I can see right now is that they can focus on the digital marketing, content writing, web development, landing page development, funnel creation, SEO expertise, Google AdWords expertise, social media marketing, and the freelancing. Those are the opportunities are available. Even though they don't need to work in the organization, they can actually, that compete in the freelancing market. So I can see at the moment, the organization are moving towards to digital. Even the student can take that opportunity as well, as long as they learn the digital skill, and then they can move there. So why they need to do it? Because how they need to do it? I think the skill development for digital marketing, that's what they can do. They can prepare to work in the organizational environment, because most of our students doesn't know how to work in the Australian culture. So I think this is a great opportunity for them to work in the organizational environment as an apprentice or as an intern. And I think they'll need to learn how to work in the work-based apprenticeship, which is, I think Gareth is going to talk a little bit later. I think also I'm constantly advising them, maybe this is an opportunity for them to get a mentor who can help them to grow as a digital marketer in the market. And they have to constantly explore the opportunities, what is in the market right now. Anyone, ready to help, seeking the help from me, you can contact with me, info@growwithhemi.com.au, or it is my mobile number. More than happy to support your journey if anyone is looking for more about any help related to digital marketing or digital entrepreneurship. So that's pretty much me, Gareth. Gareth, you are in mute.
Thanks so much, Hemi, and great to have your perspectives. As I know, as a CEO of RTO, as well as a business owner, you've been pivoting to really deliver your services in education in a new way. And you can also check out Hemi does a regular Facebook Lives. He's actually actively training business owners in entrepreneurship and digital entrepreneurship, and runs a live, when's your live feed every day, Hemi? It's about 7 or 8 o'clock.
Yeah, Australian time.
Yeah, which is just one of many ways that students and professionals can equip themselves with new skills. And just before we enter our last part of the presentation today, I just also noticed that we have quite a few interested people along from recruitment. I know Bobby and Yvette, who are both on the call. I'm not sure if they're prepared to say a few words, but I know Bobby's got a forward-thinking approach to recruitment, and Yvette has worked for 23 years with RMIT University. I'm just wondering if both of you guys have a perspective about the changing landscape of recruitment as a bridge to employment for students, and whether either of you would be willing to say a few words or give some perspectives. I've just...
can you hear me?
Oh, hi, is that Yvette? Yes.
Yeah, it's Yvette. Hi, how are you?
Hi, welcome, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, look, I agree with what everybody is saying. I suppose I was the alumni manager, careers alumni manager at RMIT. I've been a business development manager at RMIT, recruitment, and I've been recruiting as well the last 8 months for Hudson. And what's happening is, you're right, in universities, we need to make things compulsory for students, back to compulsory for work integrated learning. If they want to get the job in the real world, they have to come out as graduates with work experience, and that's whether it's international students or local students. So as a recruiter, once they come to me at Hudson and I see their CV, or I see that they haven't got work experience, it's going to be very difficult for recruiters to get them a job. So if they want to, they said, you're right, we need to really make sure that a couple of things are compulsory in universities and not optional. Unfortunately, we make it optional in universities for students to do work integrated learning now, and it needs to go back to compulsory, because it's really the top 10% of students that used to come to me and they would not need my assistance as much as those who didn't. So any questions for me? I can just talk about that all day.
Yeah.
But Bobby, please
I'll
add
ask,
anything.
I'll ask a question now. Unless, Bobby, you've got a perspective to add to that. I do have a question for you, though, about you talk about workplace integrated learning. And look, I recently did a trip to the World Economic Forum, and Professor Klaus Schwab, who's the president of the Economic Forum, has a firm perspective about just the view of apprenticeships as being a model for the future. We are in a fourth industrial revolution in which digital is going to be a big part of our lives. Even looking at the COVID-19 situation, we can just see how much our workplaces are changing and our education is changing. Yeah. What do you believe the role of apprenticeships could be in, say, the next 10 years in building stronger bridges between education and employment?
You just got to get more business on board. I think the role of a university is really to build that bridge between industry and universities, and it's not done well enough. I think that if you do that, bridging that can be apprenticeships or what I used to call work integrated learning, but there just definitely needs a bridge there. And there's so many opportunities to give international students and local students some work experience and apprenticeships. Businesses, when I was a recruiter, businesses are looking for graduates. I used to work in digital marketing and recruit digital marketers for companies. And then I used to tell them I always wore my education hat and said, have you ever thought of taking a student? Have you ever thought of taking a graduate? And they said, no. I said, did you know that universities have these amazing programs? So there's definitely there's a gap there. And it's not, I don't know why, but RMIT, opposed to Melbourne and Monash and some of the other universities, were very much into industry engagement. We were okay with it, but there's so much room there that needs to happen. And I think somebody mentioned it, that there needs to be somebody in there that's like a recruiter for students on campus.
Sure.
And it can easily be done. But an apprenticeship is a great idea. We need to have that as part of the program. Something has to happen there.
Okay, so well, that's probably a nice segue actually to this next and final part of the presentation today. I'll just make sure I have still got it up. There we go. Can you see that still, Hemi? Can you just confirm that? Yes. Okay, great. Because what I'd like to do now is just actually introduce some things that we're doing here at Green&Gold Education to foster the bridge between education and industry. I also work for RMIT. I lecture there, and the reason that I work for this university is that I do believe it's in the best position to actually help offer this bridge between education and employment. And one of the things that we've been working on for the last 18 months is by building stronger bridges by way of helping international students, available also to domestic, but international students gain quality education experiences and actually help build them those bridges while they're still in education. And that's where I'm proud to actually just give you a short introduction to one of our programs. Basically, the future of work needs jobs. When you look at the hard facts, the data, we're in a very data-driven world, but the reality is, by the foundation of young Australians, the empirical research that they've provided is that they have found that the current 18 to 24-year-olds, those currently at university, will have 17 jobs over 5 different careers. And that's not only students, but that's all of us as well. We are going to see a dramatic shift where we're going to see people applying and changing works and jobs potentially every 2.5 years. And that's why using this important research, we built one of the resources that we use to build the apprenticeship programs. But the fundamental difference between this and any other bridge out there at the moment is that one of our firm focuses at Green&Gold is actually on students' purpose. We come from a firm belief that if people are working on purpose, then they have fundamentally more motivation, they're more likely to succeed, and they're more likely to solve some of the bigger problems that the Foundation of Young Australians found towards students currently having the skills to actually get jobs in the future. The Foundation of Young Australians say that communication and confidence is one of the interpersonal skills, or soft skills otherwise known, are one of the biggest areas of lacking. And that's why where we have developed a Goldstar Method in helping students grow from green to gold. And our 3 stars are basically, we give students a unique opportunity to actually find their purpose. And we have actually a bespoke program which actually helps students guide them into what their unique purpose is. We have found, having run several MVPs last year and active programs, we have found that those that come with a positive attitude over aptitude, those that come with a positive attitude and are working on purpose, clearly then demonstrate confidence and better communication skills. And this has equipped several of our students to actually gain employment opportunities based on the realities of work in the next 10 years. The realities of work are that 7% of our economy is now known as the gig economy, and that is only going to grow during this period of COVID-19. So therefore, we believe that we can help accelerate the employment opportunities of domestic and international students by focusing on equipping them with some of the core skills for them to be successful in digital industries. And that's where we've actually developed this program and run it with several groups over the period of the last 18 months, where we focus in the first 2 weeks on purpose training. We have found, with starting with why, many of you may be aware of Simon Sinek's groundbreaking TEDx talk, which is the 3rd most watched TEDx talk of all time, is to start with why. And that's why we start with a student's sense of why. And the first 2 weeks of our program are actually about identifying a student's sense of purpose. What I found in over 3 years as a vocational lecturer is that students working on purpose would not only do better in their assignments and project work, they were more likely to get a job. And I literally saw people, certain students, get a job off the classroom floor when they shifted from being a barrister or a waiter to the social media consultant, when they were delivering projects based on purpose for their employer. So it was on that basis that we actually grew this into purpose training. And we can work with penultimate students or those recently graduated, where we're actually then equipping them for with a strong sense of purpose and aligning them with a small to medium-sized business to actually gain them paid work experience. Now, this particularly, we're also very interested to work with the changing climate, where we've actually been speaking with the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and being aware of the government stimulus package, matching students up with employers who actually can now gain access for up to $7,000 a quarter to actually engage a student, one that has, or replace a student that was previously on an apprenticeship. For anyone that's interested in this, whether you're a small business owner or an education provider, this is the program that we're launching this month, and we're going to be speaking very closely with our colleagues, the Victorian Chamber of Commerce, by actually matching up students with a strong sense of purpose and then building a bridge towards working with an employer with government assistance to actually engage them in meaningful work. Really, we've had a 75% success rate from those that have joined our program to actually finding fulfilling, purposeful work. And many of our students are now working in full-time jobs. And we have run this program over 3 times, both in social and digital media, social entrepreneurship, and I've run my legal practice and worked with the legal clerks to actually equip them with a strong sense of purpose as well. Lawyers working on purpose, it is possible. So look, just before we throw open to conversations and further and final discussion today, one of our rich focuses here, the why of what brings us here, is to actually look after the number one person that education is seeking to serve. And what we have seen in this trying period of time is that sometimes students are being forgotten in the changes. And sometimes it is those people that are suffering the most that we need to help the most that we can. So I'd just like to finally thank everyone, all the panelists today, and all those who've made a comment so far. They are Maria, who's Maria Hemi Hussein, and Mr. TJ Allen. I just would like to throw out to any final conversation or observations about continuing the employment prospects of international or domestic students, and any further discussions that we have here today. One person who I've seen on the call who's also got a great interest is Gretchen Dobson. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Gretchen, but if you'd like to say or share some of your perspectives, I believe you're up north in Queensland.
Hi, Gareth. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. I'll stop.
No, I'm actually, yes, I am north, but I'm on the northwest coast of New South Wales, mid-north coast. So I'm near Port Macquarie.
Yeah.
Port Macquarie is home to the Charles Sturt campus. So we do have an institution in our region, and we're not too far from Newcastle. The only point, there's several points that I think are important to raise, but one of them has to do with how institutions are administratively organized to be able to be proactive and to serve with purpose and to serve all students. And I do believe that there are too many silos within academia. We all realize how frustrating it is sometimes to get an answer or to build consensus as we're working through universities, either as a staff or employee or even as a contractor. And I have been helping develop our industry around global alumni engagement. So I've seen it from the inside and see it from the outside all the time. Now I think a new model, a model that's working at some institutions around the world, is an integrated enrollment management, advancement, careers, or employability services model. So from the top, what that looks like is that there is a unit, a very large unit, or maybe a small unit these days, that takes a very strategic approach to the marketing and communications and the branding of the institution to prospective students and families, works closely with agents, and brings them up through entry. They have the student experience is something where it is augmented through great personal and professional development services through careers and employability, and the connections with alumni, families, stakeholders, even those local international alumni that live right in the greater areas of their city, the diaspora. They should be tapped and organized. So I do a lot of that kind of work when we help identify who your alumni are, and it goes beyond the person that receives a diploma. So I think that integrated model really looks at the welfare from, again, the prospect stage all the way through the alumni stage. They build that lifelong relationship. And we're going to need to break down some of these models, I think, to build them back up in ways that we can fully service with the most authentic intentions. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Great to hear about the strong bridges that Charles Sturt University is building between education and industry. Just a question on that, Gretchen, if you don't mind. So did I hear correctly that there is a focus on purpose or the intention of students in
Well, yeah, and I won't say that Charles Sturt University is doing this. I'm just saying it's a practice that I've seen in a couple of institutions in other parts of the world. Okay. But it's going to need leadership. It's going to need, we're changing, things are changed.
Sure.
People are being laid off, offices they're looking at ways to save money. Many people are furloughed. If you're going to build a model that's going to be one that it can, work as intentionally and truly authentically for the relationships that you want to be building with your students and alumni and everyone else, and build those kind of partnerships with industry that come via the alumni relationship. I think a way to manage that is to bring it all together. because what it is really is the teaching and learning and the opportunity to, I think, during that time, be capable and to experience, as you said, their careers over the lifetime. That's going to change, dramatically every 2.5 to 3 years.
I've got to say, I totally agree with Gretchen there. That's well said. That's exactly right. Students need to be engaged day one that they arrive on campus and right through to alumni, and it's not happening. So I'm interested in that model. I think what you said makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to talk with you offline about that.
Lovely, thanks.
Wonderful. Well, listen, we're almost rounding out to an hour, a full hour, which we'll probably leave it there. But yeah, I mean, if the purpose of education is not to empower students towards a more fulfilling life in employment or otherwise, then really what is the point? And what we are seeing, as Gretchen mentioned, is a disruption that we haven't possibly seen in several hundred years, in which education could be brought more of a centre around these important themes. But I'll probably leave it there, and want to thank one more time our panelists, which have been Maria, Mr. TJ Allen, and Hemi Hussein. Thank you all for your contribution. We are looking to run some more further discussion around it. In fact, I've also been speaking about some international thought leaders in education, and are looking at possibly at the end of it by stronger employment situations, employment opportunities. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.